All right, everyone. We are at 9 o'clock. We still have some folks trickling in, but we're going to get started with this. We got a lot of folks on board to hear from Coach Willemssen, Glory Fast Pitch in Virginia. And we've got Coach Rob Cooper at State College, Pennsylvania, head coach of Penn State baseball. So we've got quite a healthy group of folks here. And we're going to, I think, kick it off in a second once Coach Cooper's camera comes on there. Maybe I'll try to.
Well, Jason, it says you've stopped my video, so I know
Uh-oh.
I have a face for radio, but good Lord, man, you're starting me off bad already, bud.
What about now? Does that do it? There we go. There we go.
You're stuck with me, man.
Face.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We say in Yiddish, Shana Punham, a beautiful face.
That's all right. That's okay. That's all right.
Well, glad everybody's here, and we can see everybody. If you guys do want to, when you do ask a question, anybody else on, feel free to, we'd like to see your face. It'd be great. We're going to mostly keep everyone else muted, but we're looking forward to being able to, to answer your questions via the chat again. We've had a few messages come through there already, private messages to us. You can also ask through our Twitter channels, uHIT Baseball, uHIT Softball. So I want to kick it off really by orienting everybody tonight to the real kind of driver for this. uHIT is a product that began in professional usage. It began as a brain measurement product, really. And over time, we developed more into becoming an app, kind of a game remote used at a TV. And as we started being able to access, everyone else in baseball, really, we met some really great folks out there, and we realized that there's this huge education component to baseball, to softball, and coaching, really. And so we started realizing that there's this really important aspect of the parent-player dynamic in terms of how do you maintain responsibility for, like doing your work? How do you maintain responsibility for getting to practice on time? Things like that. And that's all part of this kind of parent-player dynamic. So this is the second uHIT seminar in this series where we are speaking directly to parents of players. In this case, we're extremely lucky that these are also really well-known, really accomplished coaches as well. So we're covering both sides of the uHIT universe tonight. We've got Suzy Willemssen coming from Glory Fast Pitch down in Virginia. I say down because I'm up in New York on the border with PA. And just over the border, over the Delaware River from where I am right now, we've got Coach Rob Cooper further into PA in State College. And we're talking to not only two extremely accomplished coaches in baseball and softball, but we're also speaking to parents. So you're going to be able to ask, firsthand kind of, how did you guys do it with your kids, right? How do you do it with your players who are not your kids, but they're kind of like your kids, right? And so I want to kick it off by, asking you, Rob, Coach Cooper, really like what did you see in the kind of development of your two boys, Tyson and Jake, as they were coming through, travel ball, high school ball? How do you balance the time with all this stuff? And now really exciting that they'll be playing for you at Penn State.
Yeah, first of all, excited to be here and appreciate what you're doing and offering something like this. I think that, for me, being on this side of it where, I've coached a lot of other people's kids for such a long time, recruited guys, worked with kids at camp, that kind of stuff. And just been around, been lucky enough to be around the game. And the biggest thing for me when it came to my two boys is, I know this sounds really vanilla and really generic, but I wanted them to love the game the way they loved the game. And, as their parents, I'm excited that they're going to play at Penn State. But I also, 5 years ago or, 8 years ago when I took the job here, I didn't know if they'd be good enough. I wanted them to develop a relationship with the game of baseball that is something that can last them for the rest of their lives. And if baseball wasn't it, if it was music, if it was football, if it was art, that's really what we wanted. But then, they enjoyed it. They wanted to, kind of pursue it. And so the biggest thing that my wife and I have always looked at is, first of all, I'm not the coach when they're playing, I'm their dad. And, I wanted to make sure that, they were playing for people that were going to, one, motivate them, but also hold them accountable. I think it's really important that as parents and families and kids look for organizations and stuff, you want to make sure that you are surrounded by people that truly care about your child, son or daughter, and to make sure that, they're going to try to help them become a better player, but, are they also going to be able to help, teach them life lessons? And sometimes a life lesson is, hey, you're not good enough right now and you need to get better. And you're going to have to sit the bench this game, or you're going to have to do this. And, and so that was what it was. I mean, it wasn't, and I know we're going to get into this later, but we never picked where they would play based on what tournaments those kids were going to play in, or, what events they were going to play in. It was, who are they going to be surrounded by day in and day out? And are they doing it for the right reasons? And, again, I would rather have a coach for my child, a teacher for my child, a mentor for my child that cares more about them as a person, maybe isn't as advanced in whatever they're coaching or teaching. I'd rather have them be less advanced than that and care about my kid more.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I think picking up on that question and, Suzy, I'd love to hear, kind of your thoughts on this with Christina. She's coming through high school now, is, when one of the questions that we got sent in was really along that line, of thought, Rob, of, what do you look for really when you are selecting, I want to play with this team, I want to play with that tournament, I want my son or daughter to work at this facility, or now really in the, the COVID pandemic land, what online tools do I use? What online tools do I pass on? Right. So, so Coach Willemssen, what have you really seen, both from the parenting perspective and also from the coaching perspective, in terms of how you've kind of guided, your daughter, but also really how you've guided your girls at Glory over these last, 20 plus years?
As far as my daughter, usually when I do things, I try to remember that she is my daughter and I'm in parent mode, and I got to get out of parent mode and I have to be coach mode. And so people that are with me know I write a lot of stories. I send little parables and things, and to kind of help coaches. So probably like one of the biggest things is I feel coaches sometimes often lose an opportunity to really connect with their parents. So for me, I would like to be the one telling the narrative of our story, telling them how I want our culture to be, and just kind of dripping on them. And I feel that parents are a huge component of our team, that they know the players are responsible for communicating with me and all that stuff, but still I want them to know what we're doing and the culture and things that we're trying to create. And it's just a drip. It's not trying to do this huge flashy thing. This is just who we are. And so I laugh because I'll do parent meetings for high school and send things out to the travel people, because I coach high school as well. And kind of get into that parent mode. I laugh because I struggle with that as well. And probably one of the best things was I also coached basketball in rec league, and I'm taking my son to his basketball game. And just the night before, I had my high school parent meeting, telling them kind of expectations and release your child to the coach, so forth and so on. And so as we're driving to the game, I'm like, hey, Bobby, coach really should probably have you like in the 4 spot. And I don't know why he has Timmy in number 3. And my son just turned and looked at me and goes, you know what, Mom, you're not the coach. And I burst out laughing and I said, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm not. And that's like, so usually when I send the things to the parents, now they'll know this because they're on here. Usually I send it to myself as a reminder
Yeah.
of just some of the things we need to do. But the parents are huge.
Right.
And I want them to understand the culture and that we need them. And I know a lot of times it's like, parents, you're over here in the corner. I don't want to hear anything from you. And I think a coach makes a huge mistake with that personally. Huge
Right.
mistake. So I'd be interested to hear, with Coach Rob, and I've heard some college coaches now wanting to bring the parents on board, and so they're doing understand what we're doing, but it would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I'd love to
Yeah,
hear more about that, Rob. Yeah.
Yeah, Suzy, you're saying that, and I'm right there with you, and I sit there, and I was a very, naive young coach. I'm going to do it this way, and parents. I'll talk to parents as long as it's about the well-being of their child. But I'm the coach, blah blah blah, and the truth of the matter is, and it took me long enough to finally figure this out. But the truth of the matter is that I want the same thing the parents want. I want their child to do well. I want him to succeed. I want him to, reach his goals in the classroom and off the field and in baseball. And so what we've actually started doing to that extent is we've started doing, these not parent teacher conferences, but basically bringing the parents and the players beginning of the year and, kind of talk about, hey, like we need to be a team. And I talk about our recruiting now. So if, Suzy, if I'm coaching your son, like, I may call you and I may be like, hey, is Johnny, is he usually quiet, reserved? And they go, no, he's actually not. Or they may, and so then it gives me something to go, okay, something's up here. Or they may go, yeah, you know what? It takes him a little while to get comfortable and things like that. And vice versa. I will call them sometimes too and go, hey, listen, Johnny's doing pretty well. He doesn't think he is right now. I need you to make sure he knows that he's doing a good job. And so instead of kind of being like, when a parent calls me, instead of being like, hey, talk to him about it,
Mm-hmm.
There are still certain things that it's like, hey, if it becomes about, hey, why is he not playing over so-and-so, I'll be like, hey, look, I know you want him to play. I get that. But he and I have had that conversation, and he's, very, very capable of explaining that to you. And I just think that even to the extent of, we started doing this past year, and why it's taken us this long is, again, shows just I'm not very smart. But, we got a lot of kids in our team that aren't local, right? And so during practice, when a kid's inter-squadding, and I'll have our coaches take video of them and send them to their parents, and I'll send it to me, and then I'll send it to their parents just saying, hey, I want to let you know that, Johnny's doing a good job, and he did this well today, or he's working hard. And, just because, again, as a parent myself, I want my boys to do well. And if I'm not there, sometimes, which is fine, they got to be able to do it on their own, but just, having that is a cool thing from a parent. So yeah, I'm all in on that, Suzy. I think you're doing a great job with that.
Yeah, no, it's really great hearing you guys talk about the way parents can play this key role in their son and daughters, development, because we're a technology company. We're not really, by default, we weren't into coaching, but we started realizing that in order to, fulfill the kind of, technical development and educational aspect that we were delivering in terms of like recognizing pitch types, recognizing different parts of the zone, that was teaching. And that meant teaching in baseball and softball terms, which is coaching. And so, I remember I didn't always want to do my homework, but you have to do your homework. And it's similar with hitting practice, right? You got to work on, whatever it is, if it's, swing mechanics, if it's weightlifting, if it's cardio, if it's things like that. And then if it's also things like your cognitive side of the game, your vision side of the game. And so we started realizing that these aspects were incredibly important, of including the parents. So one of the things that, we started really kind of pioneering over the last year or so of the, with COVID was having the parents directly in the loop, whether it's via, our automated coach uHIT that helps them march along their various, steps of pitch recognition or zone recognition training. And then, having the parent in the loop, whether it's via email, via notifications, so that they know what progress their son or daughter is making. They know what progress their son or daughter is not making, or what other things may be getting in the way, whether it's, going in person to the batting cage maybe, or whether it's, something else is happening that's keeping them from making the progress that they'd like them to make. And so, it's really great, I think, hearing you guys talk about this from the face-to-face kind of in-person side of things, because we found an extreme delta, meaning a big change in performance for uHIT players when their parents were involved, because that kept them marching along through the various levels of pitch recognition round 1, 9 innings worth, right? And then they get bumped up to a higher speed, and then they're going pitch recognition round 2 on left-handed pitchers or on right-handed pitchers. And then the same kind of thing for our other part of customized training, the zone recognition. So we've generally seen that when there is a parent or a coach that is directly involved in checking up on them, one thing we do for coaches is the coach tracking dashboard for that. I think Coach Willemsen's used that quite a bit, is that helps them interact with their players in such a way to make sure that they're making progress. So, I think whether it's on the field, whether it's off the field, whether it's in the weight room, out of the weight room, there are a lot of ways that parents and the coaches can really interact for the player's sake. And it doesn't have to be this kind of like, stay out of the way kind of dynamic. And it sounds like both of you guys really ascribe to that philosophy. So that's really, I think exciting to see for players on your teams, and other folks that are watching tonight. I want to ask about the transition to college, because, obviously by, Suzy, with you focusing on high school players, and then, Rob, with you at Penn State, we're really straddling that threshold of that key transition. I mean, we've talked about this with some of the uHIT players, particularly with your team, Suzy, Jenna Pearson going to Virginia Tech softball this past year. And our first parent-player forum that we had like this on uHIT, on a uHIT Academy, featured Jenna's mother, Tracy, where she was talking about this, like, not just uHIT and its role in terms of like Jenna's hitter development, player development, but really also how she's been managing that transition from high school life to college life, which is very different, right? You're not driven to practice anymore, right? You got to get to practice on your own. And it's a different social dynamic really also that's driving how practices happen. And so, but, with that transition in mind, I mean, Rob, can you talk a little bit about some of this kind of, pressure that you're seeing, like in terms of like, for kids to pick a college soon, to commit? Can you talk about kind of pros and cons of that a little bit? And then Suzy, we'll pivot over to you on that as well in a second.
Yeah, well, look, one of the things I hate about where our profession is with college baseball and college athletics in general is that, when I first started coaching, we didn't start recruiting kids until after the junior year in high school. It got really picked up really in the summer after their junior year. And now kids are committing without ever playing a high school game. And, as a parent, and I know Suzy can attest to this, but, as a parent, my two boys are completely different than what they were in a lot of ways than they were as freshmen and sophomores. And, when you're making a lifetime decision, okay, because that's what college is. I mean, I can trace all the really, really great things in my life to people I met through college, and the path I got to take. So when you're talking about a decision that's going to impact, not just 4 years of your life, but the next 40 years of your life, then, to make that decision at the age of 13, 14, 15, it makes no sense to me. And, where I'm concerned with it is that, parents are spending a lot of money for travel organizations and tournaments and things like that. And it comes from a great place. It's because you want your kids to have these awesome opportunities. But then because of that, it's when opportunities like colleges come about and everything, it's very, very tough as a parent to go, well, maybe we pass that up. Maybe we wait. What if something else doesn't come along? And I get that. But again, you're talking about your child, and you're talking about, there, even if like, I'll give you an example. When my son was a fifth grader, we're living in Ohio, and he wants to go play football at the University of Oregon because they got really cool uniforms, and he didn't know what he really wanted to do back then. I mean, and that's okay. Like, I get that. So, it comes from a good place, but I just think we're putting a lot of pressure on these kids. And one thing that we've done, and we are not better than anybody, we've recruited kids early, and we still will follow guys, but we're starting to kind of hold scholarships until kids get older. And that means we're going to miss on some guys. We're going to miss some kids that are commit other places. But it also means we're going to get some kids that develop, later, that we have a better feel for who they are as human beings, and they're more of what they'll be when they actually show up on campus. But I think probably the biggest thing from a transition from high school to college is this. And this is why I said earlier that I think it's so critical that when families choose organizations, I think we got to be real careful about, at times about calling it select ball or travel, because the truth is Coach Suzy there, she could tell you, hey, look, your child's got a chance to be really good, and she's working hard, but right now she's behind this kid. And unfortunately, a lot of times, the only thing that's select about it is they select to go to another team because they didn't like that answer. And I'm not judging anybody for doing that, but you need to be in an organization where the people are going to be honest with you, and that they're going to also, when you're struggling, not just tell you what you want to hear. Because what happens is when guys, for us, when kids get to our level and they start to struggle, it's not that they aren't very good. It's not that they can't do it. But the truth of the matter is if somebody's gotten from high school to our level, they're good. Okay. And because of the amount of games they play and the time in between, they're gonna face somebody where their talent level is going to be better. So they never go in this long, stretch of just failure. Okay. And then they get to our level and it happens, and it scares them. But the thing that they don't realize is that means you're onto something great. That means you're about to learn something, you're about to break through. I mean, the harder it gets, the more information and growth you can make. Brene Brown, has one of the greatest quotes ever. I mean, in order to be great, you got to sign up to get your butt kicked. And she's right. I mean, but, and again, I want to make sure I say this because I know we got some young people on this call. This is not a dig at your generation, but, all of us now can pick up these phones or get, and immediately get information, can immediately have our attention go to something that we enjoy. And so what happens is that when things are really hard and you're not getting the instant gratification or the feedback that you want, then something must be wrong. It must be the coach doesn't know what they're doing. They're asking me to do something different. It's this. And the truth is no, you're going through exactly what learning how to be great is all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sorry, I know I'm dominating this a little bit, but my point is because we really try to recruit from the organizations that explain that to the kids, because then they're easier to coach when they get to us. So right. Sorry about that.
No, that's a great point. I wanted to, pick up on that because this is something that we've really seen, like, I guess you could kind of say through the data, because there are, one of the things we see when we start players on customized training. So we had a fall class for the first time in college level of a partnership program where 2 schools were selected, baseball and softball, to use our customized training for that fall. And then we're in the middle of the winter class right now. Going to be doing the spring class actually starting in April for the second part of the spring. But one of the things we commonly see is I kind of refer to it as the hump, because in the beginning it's this hump of, oh man, I don't know how this game doesn't work. I keep getting them all wrong. But I can hit. That's not the way it is for me. And so I kind of call it this hump that you see some players have, where they get frustrated really quickly. And kind of one of the dangerous things for us, you're talking about the kind of distraction-ish element with the phone, is that because uHIT is mostly done on a phone, it's also done on a remote against the TV. And I'll be mentioning some more about that tonight, because we're going to give one away to somebody attending tonight. So keep an eye on the chat, for info about that in a second. But because uHIT is done on the phone, it is constantly trying to orient you to be like, all right, let's get to the next inning. But we know that that's the same phone that players are doing, Snapchat and Instagram and, whatever else on. So we know that, we're competing for a lot of attention there, which makes it really challenging. But also what it does is it makes it really, it makes the players who really stand out in terms of attentional focus, in terms of the number of sessions they do, the number of sessions they complete, because they've got to maintain that focus for 6 pitches, 12 pitches, 18 pitches, 30 pitches, whatever it is. And uHIT has that built in its customized training now, where we're specifically trying to challenge players who, we know that there are a lot of distractions out there. We know that there's Snapchat, we know that there's WhatsApp, we know that there's Instagram and whatever else. And when we see a score of, someone's accuracy being around 50%, which basically means they're guessing between breaking balls, balls and strikes, I should say, or they're just guessing between curveballs and non-curveballs, right? That tells us that they're kind of distracted. They don't really get it. But then, so we'll make it kind of easy in the beginning, right? We're trying to go for that very short attention window that we know we're getting right there. And once we see that accuracy starting to climb, once we see those uHIT points starting to climb, those XPs, that's when we start expanding that attention window and trying to challenge the player to focus, right? So once we start seeing that they're getting over that hump, that's really something that the automated algorithm that Coach Hewitt is the face of is really trying to do, and challenge players to kind of prep them for the kind of things that you're talking about, Rob, right? Like, they're going to be challenged. They will face somebody who is better at them at some point, as a hitter, for instance. And we're trying to kind of give them that experience of some negative pushback, but in a healthy way, in an environment where they can very quickly get back up on their feet, right? It's another thing when you got the whole stadium watching you, you got your parents, you got other people's parents, you got maybe some scouts in the room, or in the stands. It's another thing when it's just you on the couch, right, with your phone. So, you can get knocked down, dust yourself off in this kind of safe zone, so to speak, right? And then get back in there. I mean, we're working through things right now. One of our minor league players, he's used to be in the Reds organization. They had big time shuffling in all the minor leagues, and so he's aiming to get signed again right now. And believe it or not, he just cannot get past the 7th inning of the second round of his zone recognition on left-handed pitchers. He's a lefty hitter, and he is just stuck on this inning. And we're working with him to try to isolate what it is that's getting that he's running into on this. But, this is a real crucial point, not just, the 7th inning of zone recognition for this player, but also in terms of, what's going on in minor league baseball. A lot of minor league players are not sure about that, right? So you'll run into, as you guys both know as coaches, players will run into challenges that, are going to be in front of them, and they're going to have to figure out, how do I get through this? How do I get over this? How do I move on to the next level? And these are the kind of things that, we're trying to do on more of a digital level, on a phone level. But it sounds like it's overlapping quite a bit with the kind of things that you guys interact with on a daily basis with your players. Suzy, I want you to throw in a little bit on the kind of the college transition aspect and some of the pressures that, you've seen, for good or bad, in terms of, at the elite level in high school, really. We won't call it select, because Rob said so. But what do you see really in the high school age range right now in terms of those kind of pressures, both for parents and for players themselves? Meanwhile, I'm going to drop some links in the chat for you guys. So take it away, Suzy.
Well, I'll kind of dovetail a little bit what Coach Rob said, and it goes back to our culture. So I wholeheartedly agree. One of our things is embrace the struggle. Like, we want it to be tough because that's when we get to shine. But how do you do that so everybody's on board? That's when you communicate and drip to the parents. Everything I send to the player goes to the parent, so they know what's going on. So they know we embrace that. We love that. We want to have the toughest. We want your kid to fail because then you're going to get to see him shine. So they know that's part of the process. So when they know that's part of the process, then they're all on board too. And they want, bring it on, like, let's go. And so that is hugely important. And then the player, sometimes this is really tough, but you have to have performance skills. You have to have something that college coach is going to help them win. That is their job. I'm not, Coach Rob is like, hey, Suzy, you're sweet, you're nice, you have the most awesome team first. I love you, you're great. But if you don't have a certain level of skill, you're just really a nice person. And you need to have a level of skill, of proficiency to just get through that door to get on that team. And I'll tell people, like, if you have to have brain surgery, like, do you want the person that was first in their class that could operate on you and with their eyes closed, but their bedside manner's not the best? Or do you want the nice person that, just got by and got C's, but man, you'd want them at your party? Like, you want the person that's going to get the job done. Then when they're deciding between these people that will get the job done, now that character and team first and their culture person, now that separates you. But you have to have a level of proficiency first. And that's where you need to be at a place where you're going to get pushed and it's going to be honest. Because then it's coming from a place like, I want to help you. Like, you're not there yet. This is where you're at, instead of just blowing smoke because you don't want to hurt somebody's feeling. If I was a player and somebody wasn't honest with me, and then 2 years go by, and then I'm finding out that my skill level wasn't going to cut it, but that person just wanted to be nice, I wouldn't be too happy. And the players want that. They want that when you're straight up and honest and telling them, this is where you're at, but I'm here to help you get where you want to be. And just being straight up. Because if they don't have a level of skill, they're really nice and everybody works hard, but you got to help that coach win. That's their job. But
Right.
It's our job to create that culture where everybody can do their best work.
Right.
Everybody can do their best.
Along that line, Suzy's dead on, because along that line too, that people don't realize is, so if we make a mistake in recruiting and we bring somebody here that's not good enough, and just so everybody knows, recruiting is not an exact science. I mean,
Right.
I've been doing this for a long time, and there's kids that I thought that person is going to be an unbelievable player, start from the minute they walk on campus, and they just, I mean, after a year, they didn't even like the, they didn't want to play anymore or whatever. And then there's been other kids that's like, no, and they end up being really good players. So it's not exact, but what people don't realize is that if we make a mistake, or a young person comes to our place and isn't good enough, it's not good for either side. Like, you only get one opportunity to go through this as a student athlete. So, if you're at a place where you just, because there's a depth chart everywhere, right? So like if you're at a place where you're just not going to get the opportunities, hey, I'm all for people sticking it out and working hard, but again, you have to be a great teammate and you have to understand that. But again, you get one chance to go through this, and we want you to be in a position to succeed. So it's a two-way street on that too, and that's why when Suzy says that, she couldn't be more dead on with that.
Right. Yeah, I want to jump in on that, because I think this is a really, I think, central topic really to everyone here, is that, like, it's really about skill development, and there are all sorts of categories where those skills can happen, but at the end of the day, you guys are coaching teams that want to win, right? And so if you're going to find an asset for that team to win, that's attractive to you, right, as a coach. And so, it's really for players to be able to use the tools that they have available to them. And, one of the things we kind of touched on earlier, Rob, and, I'd like to unpack a little more here, is the breadth of tools available to players. And the hard part isn't necessarily having access anymore. Now the hard part is choosing which ones to dive into. And so, I want to talk about that a little bit in a second. Before I do, we did drop a couple of links in the chat. We've kind of re-engineered our virtual game remotes in the last several months, and we're offering tonight to one of the attendees to get one sent to them completely free of charge. It's a $300 remote and software. So I'm going to announce some names and the first person that says they're here will get one. So right now we're looking for Liz Covey or Raylan Covey. And so if either Liz or Raylan are on tonight, drop a message into the chat. This is your test. This is your Zoom test right now to see if you can find the chat, Liz or Raylan. So drop a note into the chat and let us know you're here. But I want to come back to this point then, Rob, about the breadth of information out there, because, with the explosion of everybody using a phone, and the ways that, blast motion things can connect to a phone, Rapsodo measurements can be seen on a phone, and then there's this thing called uHIT, which is done on a phone as well to make your hitting vision better. What are those kind of, like, I guess, guidelines you suggest to players for selecting the types of tools out there? I mean, do you try to aim them to prioritize convenience, things that interact better with your team, things that interact better for, their schoolwork? Like, how do you try to guide their self-education, I guess, is the best question.
Well, I think it's like anything else, it's got to be something that's beneficial to that individual and then beneficial to the team. So, probably the best example that I can use is, there are so many different styles of clothes out there, right? But, most people don't go out and buy a piece of like every style of clothes and try to mix that in, and so it's the same thing with this. And one of the biggest things is, like, one of the greatest things about having a phone and instant access is there's access to great information. I mean, I wanted to show one of our hitters an example of, like, Roberto Clemente, which none of them knew who he was, which that's a whole nother topic. But my point is that
that'll be our next seminar, Roberto.
Yeah. But I pulled it up like that and was able to show him, like, that's awesome. Like, you have that kind of stuff to get that feedback right away. Where it gets in trouble is we have some of the guys at our level where, they're working on something. And so it comes from a good place. They want to get better. They want to grow. And so they'll look at, well, Justin Verlander does this and Max Scherzer does this and this guy does this. And that's awesome. But does it work for you? Because if it doesn't, or with, like, especially in our strength room with our strength coach, like, if they're not communicating with our strength coach and our pitching coach, hey, oh, by the way, I added these exercises that Max Scherzer's doing, like, they could actually hurt themselves. So I am all for, going on there and getting and learning about stuff and trying to maybe use a little bit of it and find out if that works for you. But I think it's like anything else. If it isn't authentic to how your game, if it doesn't make you better, if it gets you away from what you're really good at, then it's look at it as a buffet. What do I like? What can I take? What can benefit me?
Yeah.
And being able to filter it out. I think you can drown in that information if you're trying. And then there's also a lot of really good information in there, but kids aren't ready to at their age physically to do some of that stuff. And so we're asking kids in these videos and stuff to do some things that it's like, well, you're not physically ready to do that. So let's concentrate on having great intent and loving to play. Like, let's start there, And so I think that's, we're very fortunate. We're heavily invested in technology, as you know. We've used uHIT. We use TrackMan. We use Rapsodo. So we're really big on that. But at the And here's the other part that's really important for the parents on this, as well as, the kids. All that stuff is great. But as Coach Willemssen said, there comes a point in time where it's about me and the hitter I'm trying to get that person out, or I'm trying to get on base. Like, there's a competition human element in this. And so, you can do all that stuff, but at some point you got to be able to go out and compete.
Yep.
And all this stuff is good to do that. But if that becomes more important than the competitive piece, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I love this description. I saw in the documentary Fastball, is what it's called, about it's the hitting. It's the fastest someone can throw against the fastest someone else can decide. And that's really what it's all about, is that competitive element of two opposing forces in that half a second or so, and of course that's been, our whole thing is to really get into that half a second where it's even less than a half a second as those speeds get higher and higher. So, I think that's a really important point about like the buffet element, because, one of the things that when we first started working with, professional teams, in major leagues, and then now, Korea and wherever else, they would say, let's do it for everybody. And, we were a young company and we said, great, let's do it for everybody. But we started learning that not everybody needs this, right? Some people are seeing well at the plate, like Joey Votto, he's good. He doesn't really need uHIT, you know what I mean? But, the rookie ball player who's adjusting to faster breaks and, and higher speeds and all sorts of different lighting conditions and traveling conditions, and, he's not in his home bed anymore, things like that. Those are all what we call uncertainty factors, right? And so, he needs something to stabilize himself when he's up at the plate, and there's all this other stuff going on. We talked about like those attention distractors before, right? So, and that's something that, we've really been attending to as we are working with teams, where we'll say, you may have 16 hitters on the team, but, let's start with 8, right? Let's get those guys. I call like the ones, every team, if you got 15 hitters, I think there's like, I've seen like 5 to 10, 5 to 7, 8, who are what I call the lie down in traffic players. They are the ones who will lie down in traffic if their coach says this will help them hit better, right? And then you got the other half where, they're few in the end, they won't really do anything. If you tell them just to do something very easy and it'll make you Tony Gwynn, they won't do it, right? They want to see their teammates do it first, right? And then there's like this middle ground here. So, we know that, if it's swing mechanic work, maybe that's not for everybody. If it's cognitive mechanics work, like uHIT, maybe that's not for everybody. But it's being able to select based on what you see work for yourself, right? From that buffet, as you said, Rob, that I think is really the big key. I want to just, follow up. It looks like either Liz or Raylan Covey weren't on. We didn't see a message from you in the chat, so we're going to move on to Luke Tran or Mary Wu. If either of you are on, Mary, I think, is the mother. Luke Tran, I think, is the baseball player here. So, here, that was pretty quick. All right, we have a winner. All right. So, Luke, if you can just send us a private message. I mean, if you want everybody to know your address, that's fine. But if you can put your, mailing address send us a direct private message on Zoom here. We'll be able to get you, we assume, a baseball virtual game remote. So congratulations. Glad you're here. So, Suzy, I'd love to hear what, kind of what your thoughts are on this topic of like selecting from the buffet, so to speak.
Yeah, I would say it's what the player will use. And because you could get a lot of stuff, but if you're not going to actually invest and use it, then there's really no purpose. But I kind of want to go back, when we talk about like that culture and create an environment where everyone can do their best work, that's where you'll have a player, she or he can know he can fail, and their team is their safety net. And that we are striving together, and that we competing means like with somebody, not against somebody. So when you create that environment where people know that they can fail, that their team's their safety net, that they're all about growing and being curious and trying new things, then it's fun. I say, let's go exploring. Curiosity is the greatest thing that every champion has ever had, and you always want to be a constant learner, always. And so when you create those types of environments, the parents know what's going on, they know they're part of the process, and part of that is allowing their child to fail, is giving the child over to the coach and letting the child own it, because and that's how they will learn those lessons. And so then you're working with the player like, hey, did that work for you? Do you want to try this? What do you think? And they own their process, and we're just kind of there helping to guide, and their team is there with them. The other night, my heart was melting because my team in particular, I coached two of them, they're very competitive. But there they were trying to do anything on the Blaze pods, and they were trying to beat the record that nobody had beaten. And so as one girl's going, she got the record, and the person that was with her competing was overjoyed, doing high fives, just saying, that is awesome. You know, next time I'm going to beat that. And that is when, again, they're striving together. And that goes to all components, parents, players, and coaches, creating that environment and then helping them discover which thing is going to be best for them and knowing that they own it. So, you know, they have to have that, and that's where that performance skill will then flourish, because they know that they've got people have their back and they want the best for them, and they're not trying to stick a knife in their back. And I'm sorry, I'm being straight up honest. That's how a lot of things are out there. And no, then the player will never become the best as he or she could be, because the environment doesn't allow for that.
Right.
So,
Right.
but that's where you're going to get your performance skill, is by creating that environment. And then they are used to failure. And I've had college coaches come up and ask me about my best player. Hey, do you think Suzy could handle not starting? You know, do you think she's going to be able to handle? Because, and I said, yeah. And one in particular, she wanted to play at Notre Dame. So, and I'll never forget that. And you have to have integrity and be honest. Coach Rob calls me when they can finally talk and ask me about a player. I'm going to be straight up honest. And I tell my players, if you want me to say something certain about you, then be that. It's really that simple, because I'm not going to be saying something that's not true. So it goes all to integrity and being honest.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that, you know, something we've, you know, seen quite a bit, really, that, you know, this direct line of communication between, you know, a coach to a parent, a coach to the player, goes a long way. And I mean, it seems incredibly obvious, but, you know, there are all sorts of barriers to that, that can get in the way. And
yeah, Jason, another thing I was going to say, for anybody, any coach, anything, you need to define your expectation.
mm-hmm.
A lot of times we have expectations, but we've never defined what does it mean to be X, Y, and Z to the player, to the parent, or even our coaches. So anything that you expect, you need to define, and then everybody will be coming from the same place, whatever it happens to be.
Right, right. Yeah, no, that's actually something, that's a very important point. I've noticed that as we've kicked off these college partnership programs with, you know, in baseball and in softball in fall, and now in spring going into, well, winter going into spring, is setting up the expectations for players in terms of, like, you know, this is not going to fix your life, right? Especially if you don't use it, right? But if you do use uHIT, right, that will translate in some degree. It may not get you the starting spot on the team if you were riding the bench the last 3 years, but in some cases it has. We had that happen with a couple of players at our Division II school that was part of the program in the fall. A player that out of nowhere started, you know, knocking the snot out of the ball. So, you know, these are the kind of things that we've had to, I think, manage as well, the expectation element, right? And it's so exciting when you exceed those expectations, right? Because you're thinking, oh, I'm doing MLB The Show on my phone, right? How's this going to help me, right? But then all of a sudden, when you realize, man, I just laid off that junk in the dirt that the guy threw me, or, you know, I just laid off of that rise ball that, you know, is always getting me out, right? And, you know, that's I think an element that we've started to see is incredibly important too, because we're starting to get into the long-term expectation of how is a certain training regimen going to help? How do you deliver some wins early on? And that's something that, we've really tried to prioritize on a digital side with Coach Hewitt in terms of how the customized training works, is working with those expectations, right? And giving the player that's using uHIT some kind of concrete goal that he or she can shoot for to then get to the next goal in a manageable fashion. So, and it sounds like that's part and parcel of face-to-face in-person coaching as well. So I'm going to drop actually a couple of resources in the chat for folks now. We're coming up on an hour in the next 10 minutes or so. I do want to, just like with the game remote, so Luke was lucky enough to win the baseball game remote tonight. Anybody who does attend a uHIT Academy seminar does get the opportunity to start a free month of customized training. That's for zone and pitch recognition. That's for left-handed pitchers and right-handed pitchers in pitch recognition, and then left-handed, right-handed pitchers in zone recognition as well. So I'm going to put 2 links in the chat here for you guys. If that form is filled out tonight before 11 o'clock Eastern, right now we're at 9:50 Eastern, you will get the first month of customized training free of charge. So each left-handed, right-handed of pitch and zone is $8 each a month, total $32. So you get that first month, $32 completely off, which also comes with uHIT Plus, which on its own is $8. So really kind of $40 worth of value, completely free of charge, because we're really happy to have this kind of conversation in this kind of format on Zoom with such great coaches like this. And for you guys to be here really makes the event happen, right? It makes it exciting and it makes it dynamic so that they've got to react to your questions. So I'm going to put those 2 links in the chat. While I'm doing that, I do want to turn to some of the questions that we got through Twitter and a couple sent in by email. One of the ones I think might be pretty easy for you, Coach Cooper. They asked if they attend, will they be able to play at Penn State next year? So can you answer that one quickly?
Well, listen, I don't care where good players come from. I don't care, what part of the country or if they're from another country. If they can help us win, then I'll take them.
Perfect. All right. All right. So whoever's, I think Ryan was your name. If you're watching, that's the answer. So I hope we get a recruiter credit on that, though, Rob, for helping out the Nittany Lions.
Yep. Just so you know, we don't get paid any more for recruiting. Like, we get paid the exact same. So there's no finder's fee, unfortunately.
Shoot. All right. Well, we'll give you a free month of customized training. How's that? All right. So the next question we had actually was, it's a little more specific to you guys as, in your former lives as players and now in your current lives as coaches. This is from Reynold in Oregon. He asked, how has coaching hitting changed, like from when you guys were playing to where we are now, right? I mean, I know that's just like a monumental question, but can you guys talk to the good old days of when you guys were players to now? Like, what happened? Give us the history in 20 seconds. So, Suzy, why don't you kick it off, and then I'll go to you, Rob.
I'd say video and metrics, being able to measure things. So it's funny though, even with that, you could have 2 people looking at a piece of video and one person will say one thing and one person says the other. So a lot of times what I'll say, you'll always find what you're looking for. So that gets back to being curious and being a learner. So, but I'd say video and measuring the pocket radars, things of that nature. So now they don't really cost that much. So all that stuff's out there, where before you were just really kind of relying on that instructors, their eyes and what they thought in their experience. But now a lot of people can just kind of own that stuff themselves, and then maybe with an instructor that helps keep them accountable and keeps them on task and things of that nature. But I'd say video and the measurements.
Right. Would you say that cost barrier has been really the driver for, these tools really coming out into, more regular usage? It was like before it was like, oh, well, that'd be great to be able to, have radar on hand every time I was doing warm-ups. But I don't need to shell out whatever it was, $1,000 for the old school kind of Texas
Right.
Instruments, radar detectors that track Nolan Ryan's pitches. But like now you can just, set it up on a camera on your phone, right? So would you say that's really the big driving factor there?
I would say that's probably the biggest thing, because to me, you probably still have people that still teach certain ways. Like I said, you'll always find what you're looking for. So, but now there's actually being able to measure those things. So, in the video, and
Right.
it's on the phone, like,
Yeah, it's everywhere, right?
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Take it everywhere with you. It's very easy. Yeah. Okay. What do you see, Rob?
I mean, I see just there's so much information out there, and I think that, which is, again, it's good. I think that, I think it's really important that we don't try to turn kids into there's no cookie cutter approach in hitting, and I know that, depending on, the one thing I got to tell you is that social media hitting, Twitter, it just makes me nauseous. And it's not because there's not really good info. It's just that, the way in which some of these individuals talk about it, it's just, we're not doing our game any favors. Like, it's not a positive experience. And again, for example, like, it is, if you watch video, a hitter doesn't really swing down on the ball. They do to start a little bit, but then they do come up. But here's the thing, like, as a hitter, if that swing thought, and you listen to all these big leaguers talk about getting on top of the ball, if that swing thought gets them to get their swing on plane consistently, then it's the right thing for them to do. And I just think that, again, there's so much good information, so you can learn a lot, and you can really, but if you become overwhelmed by it, and I also, again, go back to, this is where I think that we're trying to teach a lot of a high level swing to kids that aren't ready for it. Okay, yeah, I understand Josh Donaldson does it, but you're 10. Like, let's seriously, like, let's work on great intent and trying to, have some fun with it and things like that, and progress. So I think that's the biggest thing. Now, one thing I will tell you, and I think it's cool, is it makes the coach's job a lot harder, because, and I remember, I'm a big Tom Brady and Patriot fan, and I remember Bill Belichick saying one time about Tom Brady. He said, coaching Tom Brady's great. He said, but it also, you better be prepared when he walks in, because he knows what's going on. Like, it's the same thing now. Like, as a hitting coach, you better know what you're talking about, because they're going to go find out. And, it's not, and I think this is a good thing. It's not like, well, hey, I'm the coach, this is the way to do it because I said so.
Right.
Because here's what's funny is I listen to a lot of coaches say, I remember when it used to be that kids would just go, okay, well, coach, yes, coach, because that's what you're telling me to do. But then, every coach would also then say, hey, we want you to be able to learn this for yourself so you can coach yourself in a game. Well, which one is it? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, you have to be prepared as a coach, because these kids, they're smart. They're going to find out. They're going to come back and ask you questions. Well, what about this? And that's good. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
So, I think there's just so much of it that it can get in the way of true development sometimes.
Right. All right. Well, I think we're coming up on 1 hour here. I want to, start closing it down by, thanking you guys for, really imparting, I think, a lot of coaching wisdom that isn't easy to get. One of the, I've referred to the pandemic ever since it started as, make lemonade from lemons. And, we've got people on the West Coast, we got people on the East Coast, we got people in the middle of the country. And I know someone even wrote into us asking, what time is this Korea time? Because we want to log in. So it's, it's noontime, Friday afternoon there right now. And we got folks from Korea on. So this has been, this is really super lemonade. This is Zoom lemonade here that they're getting. And everyone's, I think, really appreciative in the uHIT audience to hear your guys' thoughts, Suzy and Rob, Coach Willemssen, Coach Cooper. And, so thank you again for joining. Again, I want to remind everybody that we did give away one virtual game remote tonight. We've talked a little bit about uHIT's customized training here and there, where we have an automated coach that takes you through targeting your pitch recognition, targeting your zone recognition, and recognition skills, and helping that get better. We've seen a lot of great results of that with college players the last fall and now in the winter class. Our college partnership program will continue in the spring with 3 new baseball schools and 3 new softball schools. So be on the lookout for an email about that if you are coaching at the college level. So I do want to also point you guys to that 1 free month of customized training for any of the attendees. You have a link in the chat to go to the AI training page. If you go to uHIT's website now and you look for customized training with AI, you'll be able to get that up until 11 o'clock Eastern tonight. So that offer will expire in about 1 hour. So Suzy, Rob, thank you so much for being on, guys. It's been a pleasure. And anyone else, we'll look forward to seeing you at the next uHIT Academy seminar. We are going to be having Coach Mark Guthrie from Florida Burn on, former Major League pitcher. His son actually was one of the first DeServo uHIT interns ever when he was a college player. Now he's doing great things with the Detroit Tigers. So we're going to have Mark Guthrie on, and we're going to have one of the coaches most likely from the fall college partnership program on as well. So thank you everyone for joining us on a Thursday night. Take advantage of those offers in the chat right now. We're seeing some great thank yous go across on the chat, and stay tuned for some video links at some point on our YouTube channel, where you've got a lot of info from previous uHIT Academy seminars, where we spoke with pro players, where we spoke with parents that are in the same situation right now that Coach Willemssen and Coach Cooper are in, but in a little different perspective with their expertise in coaching. So thank you guys again for being here tonight.
Thank you. Warrior spirits, servants' hearts, go get them. Yeah.
Hey, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go play for her. I want in on that organization. So I am. I'm not kidding around. If you got a daughter, have her play for her. I'm in.
Love it. Love it. All right, guys. Have a good Thursday night, everybody, or Friday morning, afternoon in Korea. See y'all.
Oh my gosh.